What if I told you that in the middle of the Nevada desert, on a day like any other, the sun disappeared and the sky above Area 51 turned black? At noon, not dark like an incoming storm, not dim like a solar eclipse, but a dense, suffocating blackness. A kind of darkness that didn't behave like anything natural. No warning, no explanation, just instant nightfall, right when the sun was supposed to be at its highest point in the sky. And here's the thing, the people who were there that day, the few who dared to speak later, all described the same overwhelming feeling, like something was watching, not from above, but from within that darkness. Like the black sky wasn't just a lack of light, but a presence, something sentient, a consciousness, vast and cold. For years, the official narrative has been the same. No unusual weather events were recorded that day. No incidents reported near Groom Lake. No civilian disturbances logged. But for those of us who've spent years following the hidden patterns, decoding classified leaks, and piecing together what the government doesn't want us to see, we know that when there's silence this loud, something is being buried. Area 51 has always been a symbol of mystery, right? Aliens, reverse engineered, technology, secret experiments. But what if I told you that what happened that day wasn't about extraterrestrial visitors? What if it wasn't about advanced aircraft or experimental weapons? What if it was about a failed attempt to contain something that doesn't belong in her dimension? Witnesses, mostly former employees, truck drivers passing nearby, even hikers ignoring the warning signs, describe how everything seemed normal until it wasn't. Birds fell silent. The air got colder fast. Radios cut out. Even vehicle engines stalled as if some massive electromagnetic wave had swept the area. And then darkness. But not just any darkness. People said the blackness above them seemed to swallow sound. Conversations were muffled. Footsteps faded. Even their own breathing felt distant, like they were suddenly standing somewhere else. Or maybe nowhere at all. Some called it a localized atmospheric anomaly. Others whispered that it was a test, something the Air Force shouldn't have been playing with. But those who really dig, those who've read between the lines of declassified documents and heavily redacted files, they started calling it something else. Project Umbra, a name buried in off-the-record conversations between defense contractors and shadowy divisions of the DoD. A name tied to black budget allocations and missing satellite data. A name that, until today, most people have never heard, but should. And here's where it gets even stranger. There's a missing window of time that day, between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Almost no verifiable civilian communication logs exist from anywhere near the Groom Lake facility. Phone records, traffic camera feeds, even GPS data from commercial trucks in the area, all mysteriously blank, as if those 2 hours were wiped clean, erased, or worse, as if time itself fractured. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before we dive into what Project Umbra really was, before we unpack the eyewitness accounts that were later silenced, and before I show you the one leaked satellite image that somehow survived the purge, you need to hear how it all started. And trust me, once you do, you'll never look at a clear blue sky the same way again. Before we dive deeper, before I show you the satellite data, the redacted memos, and the witness audio that was never meant to surface, I just want to say something important. If you've made it this far, if you're here right now, still listening, it probably means you felt it too. That strange pull toward these hidden truths. That unsettling curiosity that keeps you awake at night, wondering what's really happening behind locked gates and classified files. So if this story is already making your heart race, if you've ever had that gut feeling that something bigger is being kept from us, take a second and hit the like button right now. Not just because it helps this video reach more people, but because every like, every interaction sends a small but powerful signal. A sign that there are more of us out here asking the same questions, refusing to accept the official narrative. And I want to hear from you personally. Have you ever experienced a moment, even just for a second, when the world around you felt wrong, like the air shifted, like time slowed, or like something invisible was watching? If you felt that, drop a comment below and just write, "I've felt it." Simple as that. Let's see how many of us have had that same silent moment of recognition. And if this is your first time here, or if you've been watching from the shadows for a while, but never hit that subscribe button, now's the time. This channel is for people like you, the ones looking for answers the mainstream refuses to give, the ones connecting dots that weren't meant to be connected. So go ahead, subscribe, turn on notifications, because what I'm about to show you next is something they never wanted you to see. It started with an anomaly so subtle, most people would have never noticed. At first, it wasn't some massive blackout or a ground-shaking event. It was quieter than that, more insidious. A shift in the air above Groom Lake, Nevada, right where Area 51 sits buried beneath layers of classified history. That day, satellite sensors picked up something strange hours before anyone on the ground reported it. Atmospheric readings became erratic. Barometric pressure dropped unnaturally. Fast, but only over a tight, circular area, just large enough to cover the entire base and a stretch of desert beyond it. Instruments designed to monitor cloud density, UV radiation, and electromagnetic spikes all went haywire at exactly 11:57 a.m. By noon. The sky above Area 51 turned pitch black. Not a gray overcast, not a dense storm front. Black, like an unnatural void had swallowed the sun. Pilots from nearby Nellis Air Force Base were the first to officially report it. One described it in a scrambled radio transmission that later leaked online. It's not a dust storm. It's darker than that. Visual, zero. No horizon, no refraction. It's like the light itself got cut off. But of course, that recording disappeared within hours. Accounts were scrubbed. Search engines buried keywords. Online forums where people shared what they saw were flooded with bot posts and nonsense threads until the original conversations became impossible to track. Classic disinformation tactics. The kind we've seen again and again in UFO cover-ups and Area 51 black projects. But the real story, the part that most people missed, came from the civilians. The truck drivers passing through Route 375, the hikers out near Tickaboo Peak, the workers from nearby gas stations and diners who stepped outside that day and froze in place, staring at the horizon as it disappeared. One woman, a waitress from Alamo, Nevada, later described it during a late-night interview on a fringe conspiracy podcast. Her voice trembled the whole time. It wasn't just dark. It felt like something was standing there, watching us. I could feel it in my bones. Like the air had weight. Like the sky itself was pressing down on us. Another witness, a long-haul trucker heading north, said his entire CB radio setup started crackling with static, then went dead. His engine stalled. GPS failed. When he stepped out of his cab to check the hood, he said he could barely see his own hands, even though the clock on his dashboard still said it was 12:03 p.m. And this wasn't just happening at ground level. Commercial airlines flying over Nevada reported sudden turbulence and unexplained instrument failures as they passed near restricted airspace. One pilot even made an emergency landing in Salt Lake City after claiming he saw a wall of darkness rising vertically from the desert floor like a pillar. Weather satellites couldn't penetrate the anomaly. Infrared showed nothing but cold void. No thermal signatures, no cloud formations, just absence. And that's when the more bizarre reports started rolling in. People as far as 50 miles away began hearing what they described as a low-frequency hum. Some said it felt like it came from underground. Others insisted it was coming from above, vibrating in their teeth and in the back of their skulls. Birds stopped flying. Dogs howled. Power grids flickered across multiple Nevada counties. And then came the missing time incidents. Several individuals driving along the extraterrestrial highway reported blacking out for minutes, sometimes hours, with no memory of what happened in between. One man, a tourist from Arizona, was later found wandering barefoot in the desert, nearly 20 miles from his parked car. When local authorities found him, he was muttering the same phrase over and over. It opened, it opened. What exactly it was remains the million-dollar question. But leaked communication logs between Air Force personnel and an unnamed defense contractor that surfaced weeks later hinted at something they called an event horizon breach. What does that even mean? For anyone familiar with classified experiments, exotic propulsion theories, and the darker whispers surrounding Area 51, the term event horizon doesn't just refer to astrophysics anymore. It's become code, a way to talk about artificial rift points, places where controlled tests on space-time boundaries have been pushed too far. And this wasn't the first time something like this had been. Attempted rumors of black-budget programs focused on atmospheric manipulation and dimensional threshold. Testing go back decades. There have been consistent threads linking secret facilities like Area 51 to experiments involving high-frequency electromagnetic fields and vacuum state fluctuations. Projects designed to momentarily thin the veil between what we perceive and what lies just beyond our sensory limits. But this, what happened at noon over Groom Lake, this was different. The size, the scale, the way it appeared without warning and collapsed just as fast, leaving behind nothing but confused witnesses and scrambled data logs. And while mainstream media never reported a single word about it, those monitoring government flight activity that day noticed something else. Within 3 hours of the blackout, dozens of unmarked cargo planes and military transport vehicles started converging on the base. Units with designations that don't officially exist. Specialized teams, not just for containment, but for recovery and extraction of classified biological or non-biological material. That's when the real lockdown began. Perimeter zones extended out, miles beyond the usual restricted areas. Radiation survey units were spotted sweeping the desert floor. Mobile EMP shielding arrays were deployed around key installations. And most telling of all, civilian satellite companies were suddenly issued emergency blackout directives. No flyovers, no imaging, no leaks. But of course, they couldn't hide everything. Amateur radio enthusiasts monitoring emergency frequencies picked up fragmented transmissions. Phrases like containment breach, visual anomalies, and one chilling line that has since become legend in conspiracy forums. Subject is conscious and aware of observation. And that's where things started escalating in ways no one was prepared for. What happened next is where things start to blur the line between military secrecy and something far more existential. In the hours following the blackout over Area 51, sensors across multiple government agencies began triggering alerts, radiation spikes, and disturbances, gravitational anomalies. But here's the thing. None of these anomalies followed any known pattern. Normally, when you're dealing with something like an underground detonation or a high-energy field test, you get a predictable decay curve. The energy peaks, then drops. But this grew. The electromagnetic interference began spreading outward like invisible ripples moving across the desert floor. Amateur radio operators, miles outside the base perimeter, started losing contact with each other. Civilian weather stations in places like Rachel and Crystal Springs logged unprecedented magnetic flux readings. Even local power grids showed erratic surges, short bursts of energy that didn't match any known source. And then came the animals. Wildlife in the region behaved in ways that terrified even the most seasoned desert locals. Coyotes, usually cautious and territorial, were seen running in packs away from the direction of the base. Birds abandoned their nests. Livestock in nearby ranches refused to eat, some collapsing suddenly as if from sheer exhaustion or fear. One rancher reported seeing an entire herd of cattle standing motionless, all facing the same direction, Groom Lake, as if waiting for something got by. 3 p.m. Civilian witnesses described seeing a strange atmospheric distortion hovering just above the base. Not a solid object, more like a heat shimmer, but darker, thicker, pulsing. People driving along Route 375 pulled over, filming with their phones. The footage was blurry, unstable. Most of it never made it past upload. Many claimed their devices crashed immediately after recording. For those who did manage to post clips online, the videos were removed within hours. Channel strikes, twos violations, entire accounts deleted overnight. And then, almost on cue, the men in black started showing up. Local businesses near the extraterrestrial highway reported unmarked black SUVs and government-looking vehicles pulling into town. Men in dark suits, sunglasses, earpieces, asking questions, but giving no answers. Some went door to door, collecting footage, confiscating hard drives. One gas station owner, brave enough to speak anonymously, described 2 agents walking in, flashing generic-looking badges, and simply saying, "We need your security footage." All of it, no warrants, no paperwork, just ... authority. But the real fear came when people started disappearing. A freelance journalist from Las Vegas, known online for tracking black site movements and Area 51 flight patterns, went missing the day after posting a thread about the blackout. His last tweet mentioned a mobile command unit setting up just outside the base perimeter, and then nothing. His account was wiped. Another local, a drone hobbyist who regularly flew camera drones near restricted airspace, was arrested under obscure national security charges. No trial, no bail, just ... and inside the conspiracy forums, panic. People who had been monitoring SIGINT intercepts, scanning military frequencies, and piecing together the puzzle started going silent. Threads got locked, users deleted their accounts. Even long-time whistleblowers, people who'd spent years leaking inside info about Area 51 test programs, began issuing warnings to stop digging. One post stood out. It was short, no context, just a sentence that hit like a punch to the gut. This wasn't supposed to wake it up. That phrase echoed across dozens of chat rooms and Reddit subs like a siren no one wanted to hear. What exactly was it? Some speculated it was a weapons test gone wrong. Others insisted it was related to Project Looking Glass, or worse, one of the rumored dimensional breach experiments tied to the old Montauk Project blueprints. But here's the part that hit me personally, and probably will hit you too. Multiple eyewitnesses, civilians, mind you, not military, reported feeling something the moment the sky turned black. Not just fear, not just confusion, but presence. A sensation like being observed, not from above, but from inside, as if something unfamiliar had entered their minds, peering out through their own thoughts. A woman driving near the black mailbox, a famous UFO watcher's landmark, pulled over and described in her own trembling voice, "It felt like something huge ... was under the ground, breathing, waiting." And here's where it gets even stranger. Starting around 4 p.m., multiple seismographs across southern Nevada recorded shallow tremors, but there was no geological activity reported by the USGS, no fault line shifts, no mining explosions. The readings didn't match any known seismic profile. Instead, the waveforms looked artificial, almost like harmonics, as if something deep below was resonating at frequencies we don't fully understand. By sunset, the blackout lifted. The sky cleared within minutes, like flipping a switch. The darkness dissipated, but not without leaving a mark. The desert, normally full of nocturnal life at dusk, stayed silent. No crickets, no coyotes, no wind, just stillness. And that stillness, it spread. In the following days, people living in surrounding towns began experiencing strange dreams. Vivid, intrusive dreams featuring black shapes, shifting horizons, and a voice deep and low speaking in a language no one could describe. But everyone swore they understood in the moment. And here's the most unsettling part. Nearly everyone who dreamt it woke up at exactly the same time, 3:33 a.m. every night. As if something or someone was sending a signal. And that's when the phone calls started. Not from officials or news stations, but from people. Ordinary people who had no connection to Area 51. People from neighboring towns, distant states, even different countries. They all described the same thing. A sudden, unexplainable urge to share dreams they couldn't shake. Dreams that felt less like imagination and more like intrusion. The common thread? Every single one involved a dark sky, a shifting, unnatural horizon, and something massive moving beneath the earth. Some spoke of voices whispering from places they couldn't see. Others described hearing a low-frequency hum that vibrated in their bones long after waking. But the most disturbing reports were from those who said they hadn't just dreamt about the blackout. They dreamt through it. One man from Albuquerque described standing on a barren desert plain in his dream, looking up at a sky so black it swallowed light. But it wasn't just empty. There were shapes, geometric distortions that twisted and unfolded on themselves like a higher dimensional object, trying to squeeze into our reality. He said it felt like watching something impossible, something the human mind was never meant to perceive. Another woman from Salt Lake City reported seeing a door, not a literal door, but a crack in the air itself, hovering just above the desert floor. From the other side, she felt hunger, not for food, but for attention, for recognition, like something that had been waiting too long in silence, and was now awake. And these weren't isolated cases. Forums that had nothing to do with conspiracy theories began lighting up with similar accounts. Dream interpretation subreddits, paranormal Facebook groups, even mental health support forums saw spikes in people describing shared dream experiences centered around black skies and low, vibrating sounds. The timing of these dreams? Almost all between June 13th and June 15th, the exact window when the Area 51 blackout occurred. At first, skeptics called it mass hysteria, sleep paralysis, collective stress from too much exposure to conspiracy content online. But then came the data leaks, screenshots of internal communication from NOAA, the National Weather Service, and even NORAD started circulating on fringe sites. Though unverifiable, they showed timestamps of anomalous atmospheric readings, sudden bursts of infrasound frequencies, and reports of unexplained electrical disturbances, not just in Nevada, but across multiple states at the same time. People living as far as Arizona and Utah began sharing videos of birds falling mid-flight, of streetlights flickering in rhythmic pulses, of pets waking them up at exactly 3:33 a.m., barking or howling at nothing visible. One particularly chilling video came from a security camera outside a gas station in Tonopah. The footage showed the street outside completely empty, until a faint, expanding shadow began to stretch across the pavement, as if cast by something overhead. But when the camera panned upward, there was nothing there. The timestamp on the footage, 3:33 a.m. The more people shared, the more impossible it became to dismiss this as coincidence. A map began circulating on Reddit, a heat map compiled by users tracking reported anomalies during that 48-hour window. The epicenter? Directly above Groom Lake, spreading outward like the ripples from a dropped stone. And here's where the pattern deepens. Linguists, began analyzing phrases that appeared repeatedly in these dream reports. Words and sounds that didn't match any known language, but appeared phonetically similar across unrelated witnesses. Users started posting voice recordings of themselves, repeating these dream phrases. When played back through audio editing software, something strange happened. Spectrogram analysis revealed repeating patterns buried in the frequencies, shapes resembling spiral waveforms, and at higher compression levels, geometric patterns that eerily resembled ancient symbols found in Sumerian and pre-dynastic Egyptian artifacts. Some called it pareidolia, others something far more sinister. And then came the missing time reports. A couple driving through the Nevada desert on June 14th claimed they left Alamo at 2 p.m. heading towards Hico, a drive that should have taken 30 minutes. They arrived after sunset with no memory of the missing 4 hours. Their dashcam completely wiped between 2:12 p.m. and 6:41 p.m. When the husband brought the footage to a local tech guy for data recovery, the only salvageable fragment was a single corrupted frame, showing their car driving under a completely black sky with a strange translucent shape hovering near the horizon. And this is where the fear really began to sink in. People started questioning, was the blackout over Area 51 just a weather anomaly? Or had something crossed over? More threads began appearing. Theories ranged from interdimensional bleed-through to experiments with temporal distortion fields. A few even dared to mention a term that sends shivers down the spine of anyone familiar with deep black projects: the Veil event, something referenced only in redacted documents, fringe physics discussions, and old whistleblower interviews that usually ended abruptly or went mysteriously offline. And just when it felt like things couldn't get weirder, a former contractor from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base posting anonymously on a now-deleted forum left one final cryptic message. When the sky turns black at noon, it's not about what's in the sky. It's about what's coming up from below. That post was up for less than an hour before the entire thread disappeared. But by then, the damage was done. The seed of fear, of curiosity, of something forgotten and now awakening, had already spread. It's strange how quickly the human mind tries to normalize the unexplainable. In the days following the blackout and the cascade of dream reports, people began searching for patterns, anything to make sense of what had happened. But here's the thing: when multiple layers of reality start folding into each other, logic becomes your worst enemy. The first real shift happened when the power grids in certain parts of Nevada and Utah began to behave. Oddly, it wasn't just the usual flickering lights or rolling blackouts. We're talking about synchronized electrical pulses surges that followed a rhythm, almost like a signal trying to push through static. Utility workers who responded to the outages reported something even stranger. Their handheld devices and diagnostic tools kept failing the closer they got to the desert perimeter near Groom Lake. Batteries drained in minutes. Analog compasses spun without stopping. And more than one technician mentioned a sensation that's difficult to describe, like pressure building behind the eyes, or static crawling just beneath their skin. Meanwhile, amateur radio operators, those hobbyists always scanning for odd frequencies, began picking up something that didn't fit any known modulation. Short, rapid bursts of what sounded like coded transmissions. But when played at slower speeds, the signals didn't sound mechanical at all. They sounded biological. There was one specific recording that went viral in the conspiracy forums. A ham radio operator from Henderson had captured a frequency spike at 3:33 a.m. again, that same time window. When he cleaned the audio, layered beneath the distortion was what many described as breathing, slow, labored, and deep, as if something enormous was exhaling through layers of stone. Some said it was fake, a hoax, but those who heard it with headphones late at night, they knew better. And while all this was happening above ground, Something even more disturbing was unfolding below. A team of geological surveyors, hired for a routine mapping project, reported seismic anomalies along fault lines that hadn't shown activity in decades. Microtremors, but with a pattern. The tremors pulsed at regular intervals, almost like footsteps. The USGS downplayed the findings, labeling them as instrumentation errors. But leaked internal emails suggested otherwise. Words like localized harmonic tremor and unexplained subsurface displacement appeared frequently. For those familiar with deep Earth phenomena, these are terms usually reserved for things like magma movement or underground collapses, not dry desert rock dot. But here's where the puzzle gets even darker. A wildlife biologist working near the Nevada test and training range began documenting mass disorientation events among local animal populations. Herds of deer found wandering miles off their usual migration paths. Flocks of birds circling endlessly in the sky until they dropped from exhaustion. Coyotes gathering in unnatural clusters, staring in the same direction for hours without moving. Their focal point? The same coordinates at the heart of the blackout zone. And then came the disappearances. Not military personnel, not researchers, just people. Locals, travelers, truckers. An entire hiking group that had camped near Tikaboo Peak went missing. Overnight, park rangers found their tents still pitched, their gear untouched, campfire still warm, but not a single trace of the 6 people who had slept there hours before. No tracks, no struggle, just gone. Social media threads started appearing with hashtags like #blackoutmissing and #desertvanishing. But every time a post gained traction, it would mysteriously disappear within days. Even more unsettling were the reports from those who claimed to have been near the perimeter fences at night. Some said they heard voices calling their names from beyond the restricted zones, voices that sounded eerily like loved ones, friends, even family members who weren't anywhere near Nevada. One man, a truck driver on Route 375, described stopping his rig when he saw what looked like a figure standing by the roadside. As he got closer, he realized it wasn't a person, at least not in the way we understand it. He described it as a photonegative silhouette, like a cutout of a person, where all the light seemed to bend inward. He didn't stop to investigate. He drove for 5 hours without pulling over once. The more people started talking, the more connections emerged. A retired radar technician posted anonymously on a shortwave forum that during the blackout window, radar installations across the southwestern U.S. had recorded transient objects moving at impossible speeds, accelerating, stopping, and changing direction in ways that defied known physics. Not craft, not weather, something else entirely. The most unsettling report came from a satellite analyst who leaked a single frame from orbital surveillance over Groom Lake. The image showed a shadow stretching across the desert floor, massive in scale, but with no identifiable source of light. The shadow itself had no defined edges. It seemed to shift and ripple, almost as if it were alive. This was the moment when even seasoned conspiracy theorists began asking, are we dealing with advanced technology? Or something far older? Something that's been here long before any of our radars, fences, or blackout protocols. And as more amateur footage, scrambled radio logs, and eyewitness reports surfaced, one term kept resurfacing. A phrase whispered in threads, embedded in distorted audio clips, even showing up in random, glitched frames of YouTube videos about the event. Threshold breach. A phrase with no clear origin, no official documentation, but somehow, people knew exactly what it meant. And just when it felt like public attention might reach a breaking point, the government made its move. Started subtly, almost like background noise at first. The mainstream media, which had remained curiously silent about the Nevada blackout and the mounting disappearances, suddenly shifted its tone. Overnight, every major outlet began running stories with carefully selected language. collective hysteria, mass psychogenic illness, internet-fueled paranoia. Headlines designed to redirect attention, to reframe the narrative. They rolled out panels of so-called experts, behavioral psychologists, sleep researchers, even social media analysts, each giving polished explanations for what was happening. They spoke of contagious delusions, referencing obscure historical cases where groups of people experienced shared hallucinations under stress. They pointed to the fear-driven nature of online communities, suggesting that algorithms and echo chambers were creating a kind of digital psychosis. And then came the term they all seemed to agree on, the Nevada phenomenon. A neat little box, a name easy enough for the public to digest, but vague enough to avoid accountability. The kind of label that says everything and nothing at the same time. But here's the thing. People on the ground, those who were actually there, those who felt the vibration in their bones, heard the low-frequency hum under their skin, and saw the impossible with their own eyes. They knew better. Forums exploded, with screenshots of vanishing posts. Reddit threads about the missing hikers were shadow banned within hours. YouTube channels that had posted raw footage from the desert began receiving copyright strikes for national security violations. Even private Telegram groups weren't safe admins, reported their accounts being locked or mysteriously wiped clean overnight. And then, the cleanup started. Military convoys began moving through small desert towns at night. Unmarked trucks, portable radar systems, mobile command units with satellite uplinks. Locals watched from their windows as teams in hazmat suits set up perimeter zones, blocking entire sections of public land without explanation. Some areas were cordoned off with what appeared to be simple fencing. Others were surrounded by something else entirely. Witnesses described a kind of mobile wall, a shifting, semi-transparent field that shimmered in the air like heat waves on asphalt. Some called it an optical cloaking device. Others said it felt biological, almost like the air itself had thickened, becoming harder to move through. One rancher who approached too closely reported nosebleeds, disorientation, and a high-pitched ringing in his ears that lasted for days. And still, the dreams continued. More people from farther away now, states beyond Nevada, even as far as Colorado and New Mexico. Different voices, different details, but always the same name, a name that didn't exist in any language. At least not any human language. By this point, the independent researchers, those fringe scientists, ex-defense contractors, and rogue academics who usually live on the edges of these conspiracies started connecting the dots. One particular figure stood out: Dr. Elias Mercer, a theoretical physicist turned whistleblower. Mercer had spent years warning about government experiments with dimensional resonance fields. Most dismissed him as a burnout academic with too much time and too little credibility. But now, people were pulling up his old lectures, piecing together fragments from deleted interviews, and combing through redacted papers with fresh eyes. According to Mercer, certain regions of the Earth, what he called resonance nodes, sit at natural fault lines not just of geology, but of frequency, space, and consciousness. Places where, under the right conditions, reality becomes. Porous Dot and Groom Lake, right on top of one. Mercer's old diagrams, when overlaid with the USGS seismic anomaly maps from the past month, lined up with chilling accuracy. And then came the leak that changed everything. Late one night, a compressed folder appeared on an obscure .onion site deep web territory. No one knows who uploaded it. Inside, a collection of internal DARPA briefings, satellite photos, and lab transcripts. But the file that got everyone's attention was labeled simply threshold_breach_protocol. The document described something called containment layer failure. Terms like cross-dimensional feedback loop and non-baseline entities appeared throughout the text. The language was clinical, cold, but the implications were undeniable. The blackout hadn't been a power failure. It had been. A curtain dropping. The shutdown of electronic infrastructure wasn't accidental. It was intentional. A way to contain something. Or at least to try. But maybe the most disturbing detail, buried in the metadata of one of the leaked satellite images. A timestamp showing the file was last accessed not from within any government server, but from an IP address in a small town hundreds of miles away. A town that, up until 2 weeks ago, didn't even exist on official maps. A town where, according to the leak, the first physical breach point had opened. And now, even people far outside the desert were beginning to notice the change. Strange cloud formations, electrical storms without thunder, dogs barking at empty corners of rooms, nightmares shared between people who'd never met on opposite sides of the country. And worst of all, the growing, sinking feeling that something wasn't just coming, it was already here. It was around this time that the first civilian videos began leaking out, blurry, shaky, often distorted by electromagnetic interference, but still undeniable. Clips showing things that didn't belong in our reality. Shadows that moved against the wind. Figures tall and thin, almost humanoid in shape, but wrong in every other way. Limbs that bent at impossible angles. Faces, or what should have been faces, distorting and flickering, like bad reception on an old analog TV. One video in particular started gaining traction across encrypted message boards. It showed a stretch of desert highway, shot from inside. A moving car. The driver, clearly panicked, kept repeating the same thing over and over, almost like a mantra. It's following me. It's following me. It's not behind me, but it's still following me. The camera pans to the rear window, and for a few seconds, there's nothing. Just empty road and desert heat haze. But then, a ripple, like the air itself folding in on itself, leaving a trail of static distortion in its wake. No form, no clear shape, just the suggestion of something immense, moving. SENTIENT. And then the video cuts out. What's even more unsettling is that multiple users claimed they'd had the exact same dream the night after watching it. Not similar, exact. A 2-lane desert road. That same disorienting chase. The same distorted whisper following them, repeating a word they didn't recognize, but still somehow understood on a gut level. This was no longer isolated. It was becoming systemic. And just like that, the language online started to shift again. People began talking about frequency contamination. Threads popped up with titles like "Is reality fracturing?" and "Shared cognitive collapse," or "External interference." Researchers on the fringes, people who specialized in fields like parapsychology, quantum resonance, and collective consciousness, started publishing rushed papers, throwing out terms like interference patterns, localized dimensional, bleed, and psychogenic entropy fields. Some users started sharing recordings of the strange background hum they'd been hearing at night, not just in Nevada anymore, but in places as far apart as Seattle, Austin, even parts of rural Maine. The sound was low, almost subsonic, but with headphones or on the right speakers, you could pick up the layered frequencies underneath. Pulses, rhythms, modulations that didn't match any known geological or atmospheric source. And then, people started disappearing. Not in the traditional sense. Not like someone packing a bag and skipping town. No, this was different. Got friends reporting waking up in the morning to find that a family member simply wasn't there anymore. Their belongings untouched, cars still parked in driveways, phones still charging on nightstands. But when loved ones tried to report them missing, the records were gone. No DMV files, no credit history, no school records, no birth certificates. As if they had never existed in the first place. Some called it erasure events. Others whispered a different word, rewriting. the more the government pushed the mass hysteria narrative, the more obvious it became that they were covering for something they couldn't control anymore. Internet sleuths tracked down flight paths from nearby Air Force bases. They noticed a sharp increase in night flights along looping patterns, almost like aerial surveillance, or worse, deployment routes. And right around this time, the name surfaced again, the one from the dreams, but this time in a place no one expected. A linguistics researcher named Dr. Marin Solis, who had been tracking phonetic anomalies in spoken language patterns across social media, posted a cryptic thread. She had run frequency analysis on the audio clips from people repeating the dream name. What she found was staggering. Despite slight variations in accent, tone, and pronunciation, the underlying frequency signature of the spoken word was identical. Physically impossible, according to her own tools. As if the word itself wasn't just being said, but was being implanted, overriding natural speech variation, forcing a single, uniform vibrational output across completely unrelated individuals. Solis's final post, before her account went dark, simply read, "It's not a word, it's a key." That phrase spread like wildfire. It's not a word, it's a key. Some believed it was a form of cognitive trigger. Others thought it might be part of a larger activation protocol, something buried deep inside human consciousness, now being unlocked. And here's where it gets even stranger. Reports started coming in from hospitals, neurologists noticing spikes in patients experiencing sudden, unexplained episodes of catatonic states. People staring into space for hours, unresponsive, but with brain scans showing hyperactivity in regions typically associated with sensory processing and spatial awareness. Few doctors leaked footage from inside an emergency ward in Albuquerque of patients, all murmuring the same phonetic string. That name again and again, almost like a chorus. And the more people heard it, the more began to experience the same thing: sleep disturbances, déjà vu loops, temporal disorientation, people losing track of time for entire afternoons. And that same recurring symbol showing up in random places, in sidewalk chalk drawings by children, carved into trees, even appearing briefly in TV static before channels switched. And yet, the official narrative held strong. The media doubled down on their collective psychosis storyline. Government spokespeople stood in front of podiums and delivered carefully worded statements about public safety, mental health crises, and the importance of avoiding misinformation. But people weren't buying it anymore, because how do you explain waking up with soil under your fingernails when you live in a high-rise apartment and have no memory of leaving your bed? How do you explain finding the same unfamiliar symbol drawn in condensation on your bathroom mirror when you live alone, or hearing your own voice on a voicemail you never left, whispering that name over and over? It wasn't just happening in the desert anymore. It was spreading. You start to realize something unsettling when you look deeper into the patterns emerging around this phenomenon. It's not about something coming from somewhere else. No flashes of UFO lights darting across the sky. No beams from unknown ships descending from distant galaxies. It's about something that's been here all along. Something woven into the fabric of our reality, lurking just beyond our perception, hidden in the shadows of the everyday. The veil was never fully closed. It was always a thin membrane, and now it's tearing. Think about that for a second. The beings, the shapes, the voices, none of them arrived. They were never visitors from some far-off star system. They were never waiting outside the portal the government opened. Instead, they've been slipping through cracks in our perception for centuries. Millennia maybe, quietly influencing, observing, and sometimes interacting, always just beneath the threshold of human awareness. This explains so much: the stories of shadow people, of inexplicable presences in folklore and mythologies across the globe. The strange encounters that can't be explained by physics or logic, but carry an undeniable sense of reality. These entities, these others, are not foreign invaders. They are intrinsic to the dimensions we share, but most people simply cannot see or hear them until now. The portal wasn't an opening for them to come in. It was a catalyst for us to start seeing them. And that revelation is both terrifying and oddly comforting. Terrifying because it means our reality is far more fragile and permeable than anyone dared to believe. Comforting because it means the alien isn't necessarily a threat, but maybe a piece of a larger puzzle we're just beginning to understand. There are those who argue that what we're witnessing is a kind of dimensional bleed, a phenomenon where the boundaries between our plane of existence and others are weakening, allowing energies and entities from parallel dimensions to seep through. Others, especially those with backgrounds in esoteric spirituality and quantum metaphysics, see it as an evolutionary awakening, a recalibration of human consciousness that is simultaneously unlocking latent senses and tearing down old perceptual barriers. What's undeniable is that people across the globe are experiencing the same symptoms: heightened intuition, spontaneous telepathic impressions, vivid dreams where these beings appear not as threats, but as guides or warnings. A whispered name from the dreams, that strange frequency that can't be explained by sound waves alone, feels like a key turning in a lock deep inside the collective mind. The old rational explanations crumble when faced with the flood of first-hand accounts of individuals who claim they've felt watched for years, or heard voices in their heads that aren't their own, but never harm them. The patterns aren't random. They're deliberate, like someone or something is trying to communicate, trying to break through the limits of our understanding. But here's the real kicker. These beings don't just observe from the outside. Some people report physical changes, subtle shifts in their bodies that no doctor can diagnose. Skin temperature fluctuations, heightened senses, even the occasional appearance of iridescent marks or symbols on their skin that fade after a few days, but leave a lingering sense of awe. And while the mainstream media dismisses these stories as mass hysteria or delusion, underground communities dedicated to paranormal research, quantum consciousness, and dimensional studies have started piecing together what looks like a coherent map of these interactions. One researcher, who's been working covertly for years within classified government projects, leaked documents indicating that these entities might be partially made of what he called dark energy residues, forms of matter and consciousness that exist outside conventional spacetime. They can phase in and out of our perception, interact with our environment, and influence human neural pathways to varying degrees. Doc, it's like we're suddenly waking up inside a multidimensional reality where layers overlap, and for the first time, we're catching glimpses of the things that have always been there, watching and waiting. This shifts the entire paradigm of how we understand existence. It challenges the idea that reality is fixed, linear, and solely physical. Instead, it suggests that consciousness, time, and space are fluid and interconnected on levels far beyond current scientific models. Have you ever felt that moment when reality flickers, like the world skips a beat for a second and something else is just there, barely visible out of the corner of your eye? That feeling isn't hallucination. It's a fracture in the veil, a peek behind the curtain. We're at a crossroads, one where the boundaries between human and non-human, physical and non-physical, natural and supernatural start to blur. Question isn't whether this is real anymore. It's how we choose to respond. Are we ready to face what's always been among us? To confront the hidden dimensions bleeding into our own? To accept that the universe is far stranger, more complex and more alive than we ever imagined? This awareness comes with an immense weight. It shakes the foundation of identity, belief, and trust in the world we thought we knew. Yet it also offers a kind of liberation, the chance to evolve beyond the narrow confines of everyday reality, to tap into knowledge and experience previously thought impossible. But such a journey isn't easy. It requires courage, openness, and a willingness to question everything. And for some, it can be profoundly disorienting, even frightening. If you felt strange changes in your perception, unexplained sensations, or have glimpsed things others can't see, you're not alone. The veil is lifting for many, and with it, a flood of new experiences and questions. What exactly lies beyond this veil? What do these entities want? Are they guides, watchers, or something else entirely? And perhaps most unsettling, what happens if the veil tears too far, too fast? These are questions we're only beginning to ask, and the answers could redefine humanity's place in the cosmos before we go any deeper. Take a moment and think about what it means if the others aren't visitors at all, but threads woven into the very tapestry of our existence. If the portal wasn't an entrance for them, but a window for us to finally see what's always been here, hidden in plain sight. And with that, we start to understand the magnitude of what we're dealing with. The veil between worlds is thinning, and reality as we know it is shifting under our feet. You know that feeling when the world seems to shift just slightly, like the air around you thickens, and suddenly the familiar becomes strange? It's subtle at first, but if you pay attention, you start to notice cracks in the reality you thought was so solid. This is the threshold where the veil between dimensions thins even more, and what once was invisible begins to take shape in ways you can't ignore. People around the globe have reported an increase in these experiences, fleeting shadows that don't quite obey light or physics, voices that whisper at the edge of hearing, and moments of intense déjà vu that feel less like memory and more like a message. It's as if reality itself is rewriting its own rules, inviting us to witness something far beyond the mundane. Those stories aren't just isolated incidents. They are fragments of a larger mosaic emerging in real time. Scientists who dared to look beyond conventional paradigms speak of quantum entanglement, not just as a physical phenomenon, but as a bridge to other layers of consciousness, a kind of universal web connecting all things, seen and unseen. It's here, in this liminal space, that the boundaries between our world and others grow porous. The others we've come to fear or dismiss aren't so much invaders as they are neighbors, entities existing in parallel dimensions, sometimes intersecting with our own. This isn't some sci-fi fantasy. It's a reality encoded in the fabric of the cosmos, waiting for the right conditions to reveal itself. And those conditions are unfolding now, accelerated by shifts in Earth's magnetic field, the rise in collective consciousness, and yes, the breaches caused by the so-called portal. But what exactly is this portal? It's less a doorway and more a ripple, a distortion in space-time that allows for subtle yet profound interaction across dimensions. Now, consider how this interacts with human perception. Our senses are limited, filtered through evolutionary layers that were never meant to fully grasp multidimensional existence. But as the veil thins, those limitations begin to dissolve. People find themselves sensing presences, feeling energies, and even communicating in ways that defy explanation. Telepathy, synchronicities, and unspoken understanding become more frequent. Some experience these encounters as disconcerting, even frightening, but others describe them as deeply transformative, as if awakening to a larger reality where consciousness is the true essence of existence. The line between self and other blurs, and the concept of alien shifts from an external threat to an internal mirror, a reflection of aspects of ourselves that have been dormant. And this awakening is not happening randomly. There's a pattern, a growing chorus of voices and experiences converging to tell us something crucial. We are not alone, not separate, and not bound by the linear constructs that have defined our worldview. The portal's opening was a catalyst, yes, but it also revealed a profound truth, that the multiverse is interconnected in ways that challenge everything we think we know. If you've ever felt that sudden rush of energy, a presence just beyond, the edge of vision, or that inexplicable pull toward the unknown, you're tapping into this shift. It's as if the universe is reaching out, inviting you to cross a threshold of awareness. But crossing it isn't about fear or escape. It's about integration, about understanding that the shadows and whispers are part of a larger, cosmic dialogue. Ancient texts and esoteric traditions hint at this reality under different names. The otherworld, the spirit realm, the Akashic field, all describing layers of existence intertwined with our own. What we're witnessing now might be the unraveling of the old veil, the breakdown of the barriers that kept these dimensions separate and hidden. Yet, with this opening comes vulnerability. The energies and beings crossing through these fissures are not always benevolent. Some are neutral, curious, even helpful. Others are chaotic, feeding on fear and confusion. That's why discernment is key. Learning to navigate these experiences with clarity and groundedness is crucial for anyone awakening to the multidimensional nature of reality. It's no coincidence that the rise in these phenomena correlates with increased reports of strange occurrences worldwide, mass sightings, unexplained disappearances, and shifts in collective human behavior. The planet itself seems to be responding, as if the Earth is a living conduit between dimensions, reflecting the changes occurring on a cosmic scale. So, what does this mean for us, living through these unprecedented times? It means we're being invited to expand our consciousness, to question the foundations of what we accept as real, and to prepare for a new paradigm where the separation between us and them no longer holds. It means the story of human existence is about to take a dramatic turn, one that involves embracing the unknown, the unseen, and the unfathomable. Take a moment to let that sink in. Feel the weight and the wonder of standing on the brink of a multi-dimensional awakening. What parts of you are ready to emerge? What fears must be faced? And what truths are waiting just beyond the veil, ready to transform your understanding of who and what you really are? If this resonates with you, if you've sensed the subtle tremors of this shift in your own life, I invite you to reflect on what the veil thinning means for your own journey. Maybe there's a phrase, an image, or a feeling that captures what you're experiencing. Hold on to that. Share it if you want to, as a way to connect with others navigating this new frontier of existence. The layers are peeling back, the portal's influence spreading, and what we see next will challenge everything we thought we knew about reality itself. You ever get the feeling that something's been watching you all along? Not from some distant star or faraway galaxy, but right here, hidden in plain sight. It's like a presence that's woven into the fabric of our reality, but carefully disguised. You think of aliens as beings who come from out there, but what if the real truth is that they never came at all? What if they were already here, always here, existing alongside us on a plane we barely perceive? This shifts everything. The idea that these beings have been part of our world, not intruders, but ancient inhabitants, challenges the narrative we've been fed for decades. The alien is no longer an outsider. It's a mirror reflecting an alternate layer of existence, a parallel reality brushing up against our own. It's a coexistence that's hidden beneath the surface of everyday life, where the lines between dimensions blur and overlap. Think about the countless reports of encounters that don't fit the classic UFO landing story. The strange figures glimpsed just beyond peripheral vision, the inexplicable feelings of being followed, the unshakable intuition that something unseen shares the space with you. These experiences are consistent across cultures and continents, hinting at a reality that's deeply embedded in our collective consciousness. The government's silence on these matters isn't just about secrecy. It's about maintaining the illusion of separation. By calling these phenomena hallucinations, delusions, or misidentifications, they reinforce the divide between the known and unknown, the material and the metaphysical. But the evidence, fragments of it anyway, leaks out in reports from whistleblowers, declassified documents, and eyewitness testimonies that can't be easily dismissed. What does it mean for humanity to realize that we share this planet, with entities from other dimensions, entities that have been here before us, during us, and likely after us. It suggests that our understanding of history, evolution, and even consciousness itself is incomplete. The so-called aliens may represent advanced states of being, interdimensional travelers, or remnants of a time when the fabric of reality was more malleable. This presence has influenced myths, religions, and spiritual teachings for millennia. The gods, spirits, and mysterious creatures in folklore could very well be interpretations of these interdimensional neighbors, a legacy encoded in symbols and stories meant to warn, teach, or prepare us for awakening. And as the veil thins, those ancient stories begin to resonate with new urgency, as if they're clues left for us to decode. Some argue that these beings observe humanity with a mixture of curiosity and caution, aware of our fragile evolution. Others believe they have a hand in guiding us, nudging us toward a higher understanding, though not always in ways we expect or comprehend. It's a delicate dance, one that requires us to expand our awareness beyond fear and skepticism, to embrace a reality where the other is part of the whole. In this context, the so-called invasion is a misconception. Instead, it's a gradual unveiling, a reunion with aspects of existence that have been sidelined or suppressed. The portal that was opened didn't just allow something to enter. It revealed what has been with us all along, quietly shaping our reality from behind the curtain. And if this feels unsettling, that's understandable. It challenges everything we believe about our place in the universe, our identity, and the nature of existence itself. But it also opens the door to profound possibilities, to healing old wounds, reclaiming lost knowledge, and forging a new relationship with the cosmos. Notice how this awareness begins to shift the way we see ourselves and each other. Suddenly, isolation gives way to connection. Fear turns into curiosity. The unknown becomes an invitation rather than a threat. We start to realize that the mysteries aren't out there somewhere, but threaded into the very fabric of our daily lives. If you felt a strange pull toward the edges of reality, or experienced moments when the veil seemed thinner, you might be tuning into this hidden coexistence. Maybe there's a word or image that comes to mind, something that captures the essence of this strange but undeniable truth. Hold on to that. Let it guide you as you navigate this new awareness. The presence that was always here, waiting quietly in the shadows, is stepping into the light. And as it does, the story of humanity's journey unfolds in ways more complex and beautiful than we ever imagined. Have you ever felt a subtle shift inside yourself? Something that's hard to put into words but impossible to ignore? Like a sudden awareness that the world isn't quite what it used to be? That something ancient and powerful is stirring beneath the surface of everyday life? This sensation, this awakening, is becoming more common, as if the veil that once separated us from deeper realities is growing thinner by the day. You might call it a spiritual evolution, a collective awakening, or even a cosmic realignment. Whatever name it takes, it's real, and it's happening now, inside you, inside me, inside all of us. It's strange to think about, but this feeling of change is the result of something far bigger than any government secret or classified project. It's not just about the portals or the beings that were always here. It's about how those realities ripple into our very core, shifting our perceptions, our emotions, and our consciousness. You can feel it as a kind of restlessness, a desire for truth that refuses to be silenced, a hunger for something beyond the mundane. When the first signs appeared, subtle synchronicities, strange dreams, unexplained sensations, many brushed them off as coincidence or imagination. But those moments keep multiplying. People everywhere report a growing sensitivity to energies, a sudden clarity in their intuition, or a profound sense of connection with the universe. Some describe it as a calling, others as an initiation, but all agree it's transformative. Inner change can feel disorienting. Old beliefs, fears, and doubts rise up, challenging us to confront parts of ourselves we might have ignored. It's as if the presence that's been with us all along is now asking us to wake up, to remember who we really are beyond the roles we play or the stories we tell ourselves. There's a subtle invitation in that, to step into a new level of awareness where the boundaries between self and other, human and alien, begin to dissolve as these shifts intensify. Some people experience physical symptoms, waves of energy, changes in sleep patterns, heightened sensitivity to light and sound, signs that our bodies are adjusting to new frequencies. This isn't random. It's the body's response to expanded consciousness, an adaptation to vibrational changes happening on a planetary scale. The Earth itself seems to be tuning to a higher resonance, and we are part of that cosmic symphony. It's no coincidence that these changes coincide with a surge in reports of unexplained phenomena, sightings, encounters, telepathic experiences, and moments where time seems to bend or reality glitches. These events are the outward manifestations of the invisible transformation occurring within us all. The portals opened by secret programs might have cracked the door, but the real gateway is inside our hearts and minds. This is why the narrative of fear and alien invasion falls short. The true story is one of integration, of embracing the unknown parts of ourselves and the universe as allies rather than enemies. It's about recognizing that the other is not a threat, but a reflection of potentials we haven't yet fully realized. The beings who've been here all along are mirrors, teachers, and sometimes guides in this process. You might be wondering, what does this mean for your everyday life? How do you navigate this new reality when so much of what feels familiar is shifting beneath your feet? The answer isn't simple, but it starts with paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, and the subtle signs around you. Trusting that inner voice that urges you to look deeper, to question the official stories, and to open your mind to possibilities beyond the ordinary. This journey is deeply personal, but also collective. As more people awaken to these layers of reality, the collective consciousness evolves, creating a feedback loop that accelerates transformation. It's like a wave building momentum, carrying us toward a horizon where the lines between science, spirituality, and the unexplained begin to merge. There's an old phrase, whispered among those who explore these frontiers: you are not alone. It's a reminder that even when the path feels uncertain or overwhelming, we share this awakening together. The presence that's always been here is calling us to step into a new relationship with reality, one where we embrace mystery without fear, curiosity without judgment, and connection without separation. At this point, you might feel a stirring, a word, an image, or a sensation that captures what you've been experiencing. Maybe it's a symbol like a portal, a star, or a silent being watching just beyond sight. Maybe it's a phrase like awakening, integration, or cosmic homecoming. Hold on to that. Let it become your anchor as we continue to explore what's unfolding, because the story isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning to reveal its deeper layers. What you're feeling right now is a sign that you're tuning into the frequencies of a new reality, one where the boundaries of time, space, and identity start to dissolve. And as these changes unfold, there's no turning back, only moving forward into a world where the impossible becomes possible and the unseen becomes known. If you've sensed this too, if these words resonate with something stirring inside, I invite you to keep that feeling alive. Maybe share a word or phrase that feels meaningful to you, something that captures this moment of awakening. Let's hold space for each other in this journey toward the unknown, together. If you've made it this far and felt something shift inside you, this is your moment. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the revelations still to come, because this journey is just beginning, and the truth we're searching for goes far beyond what we've uncovered so far. Drop a comment right now with the words "I receive" if this message spoke to your heart, if you feel yourself awakening to something bigger, to a reality that not long ago seemed impossible. Your comment isn't just a response. It's a sign that we're in this together, that this energy is spreading. Don't forget to leave a like, because it helps spread this message to others who are also ready to listen, to feel, and to awaken. Every like is a small light sparked in the darkness, one step closer to opening the portals that connect our consciousness to the universe. And to keep unraveling this mystery, the next video is right here on your screen, waiting to reveal more. Secrets, more signs, more truths that have been hidden for so long. Click and join me for the next step, because what's coming will change everything you thought you knew. We're on this journey together. See you soon.